Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Delighted to be able to talk to my friend, Steve Parkhurst, who's also a senior editor over at usdailyreview.com, my favorite news site. Man, you know, I don't know if you realize this, Steve, but we're at 1,300 articles, and we've only been around since August. Pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, it continues to grow every month, and it's slow but steady, and I think we've got a good. You can tell based on comments and social media that it's got a good, steady audience who's interested in paying attention to new content, and we have writers who get in there and kind of go back and forth and kind of create a dialogue, as opposed to most blogs being just top down where they post articles and then the writers disappear. Our writers stick around and they comment and they appreciate feedback and willing to engage in a little bit of debate when some of our writers write some more controversial things. But it's an evolving website, and it's a lot of fun to look at every day.
Yeah, and in fact, I was looking at a website that sells ads for conservative blogs, and in terms of number of hits, we're now better than roughly half of the blogs in terms of number of hits. Well, well over 150,000 a month, according to my last read. I'm not the greatest with the analytics, but I could at least get that much out of it. And that's pretty impressive for something that's only been around, again, since August, 150,000.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also interesting that we didn't, in our early discussions, and even now, really, it's not like we ever wanted to be a dedicated conservative blog. It's just like that's kind of where it went, because that's where the writers were. It's like that's where the ideas were, and it kind of maybe says something about the other side of the aisle that they don't have many ideas to offer. But we've got a couple writers who do, let's say, some of our features on other things that are not political, but they're a little bit more left leaning, and they don't necessarily participate in our website, but they appreciate the audience, and they appreciate that if they're posting something, let's say on travel or business, that it's something that's going to kind of be universally read or, appreciated by at least our side of the aisle that may not necessarily agree with them politically. But you're right. It is interesting that it has it's created its own audience, and it's kind of lean conservative because that's where our writers are. But we're open to everybody, and if somebody's out there listening and willing to write, we're willing to publish smart dialogue.
Yeah, we've published more than one article, that's for sure. Several articles over the months that I certainly didn't agree with, and I kind of swallowed as I put it. But you know what? It was well written, interesting, created dialogue, and that's exactly what we need. And it's not just conservative. I think it's kind of out of the box conservative, and some of it's even libertarian. I think that's fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, when you said that, there's some stuff on the left that you've read and you not necessarily agreed with, well, there's some stuff on the right that I don't fully agree with either,
yeah,
including the far right. And, I'm not going to name names or anything, but yeah, there's stuff that I've edited where I kind of look at it and think, well, this is not necessarily something I agree with, but I appreciate the dialogue and I appreciate where this could go. And it's like, it goes back to the First Amendment, and this is what we're all about. It's like, let's create dialogue. Let's have a big, long discussion about things.
We do have a couple of what they call paleo conservatives. We have a couple of those, and those, and it's like, wow. I mean, this is the 21st century. We can't keep our head in the sand. But if you want to write that and you want to create that dialogue, go ahead, see how that goes. And it's been a lot of fun. And of course, we've had a couple of Romney fans way before being a Romney fan made sense. But that's part of it too. Let them write, and their writing's been good, and it's created stimulated discussion. So that's what it's all about. Another thing that one of my favorite features though is what you do on England across the pond. That's been fun to watch, and I know that's something that I get the sense based on what you've produced over the several months. That was something that was birthing inside of you even before we got together with the U.S. Daily Review.
Yeah, it was something that I had done on my personal blog where I had followed, before we got this website started, I had followed the British elections in 2010 with David Cameron coming in and really kind of leading a conservative movement based on some different issues, including one of the big issues that they won on was the environmental issue, which is an issue, frankly, in my mind, that conservatives should dominate here, but we don't. And that's a whole other topic for another day. But it definitely was something that I followed, and then the Lib Dem coalition that they built over there, where the Lib Dems joined the conservative coalition to build a governing majority, and then just the whole process. So it was something that I really followed and I really enjoyed. And Britain, politics over there is a lot different than it is here.
A lot different.
In so many ways. And they have a mayoral election, which is a big deal there. They have that coming up on Thursday, and so it's been fascinating to watch that. And a lot of the stuff I've been posting recently has been some of the debates, and they have the mayor of London right now, Boris Johnson, is just an absolute character, and he used some explicit language on TV the other day, for about the 50th time, and it's really funny, and it makes the rounds, and it's interesting to watch. So yeah, British politics, like I said, it's totally different, but it's also at the same time it's fascinating. And frankly, as I've said before on your show, I've always viewed Britain as about 10 to 12 years ahead of where we're headed a lot of times. And so it's kind of like it's almost like looking into the future in a way when you follow what's going on over there.
Now, when you say that, in what respect do you mean that?
Oh, I look at the simple things like and I say simple, very complex issue, healthcare, as we discussed before. They're already at socialized medicine. They're already
they've been there since the 40s, I think, or 30s.
Right, and again, that goes back to a difference between I didn't mean 10 to 12 years on every single issue, but that's a good example where they're as we've discussed before. They're so far in trouble on the issue of healthcare that they're trying to pull it back now. And David Cameron's big society programs is starting to kind of do some of that, where they realize the government will never survive, or the country will never survive long term if they're going to be piled with trillions of dollars in debt just because of the healthcare system. So it's like they've realized that they've got more sick people than they've got people to pay for the sick people, and these dollars are just, it's like, where are they going to come from? It's like you can't tax people at 100% rate. You'll have nobody go to work at that point.
David Cameron, and we've got to wrap up in a minute. And so what you're saying is they're going away from the collective approach that they've been doing for decades because they can't afford it. Not to mention the fact they've been complaining for decades over the problems of rationing that which my grandfather died of British healthcare rationing, by the way. And so they're moving that direction. David Cameron's an interesting character. I mean, he would be. They really thought he was going to be a liberal conservative, and he is in some respects. But you know what's interesting about him? Because of that liberal reputation, he has the capacity to do in England what Bill Clinton did with welfare in this country and Richard Nixon did with China in this country. He kind of just slapped people silly because you didn't think he was going to come from that direction.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. David Cameron has been over here. They would label him a rhino, and then he would never get elected.
Right.
Anything.
I guess he's a Tino or a Kino or a Sino.
Right, exactly. And so, but again, I think there's some things, especially like I mentioned earlier, the environmental kind of approach that he's taken, where it's like he's at least gotten the conservatives into the debate on the environmental issues by leading with common sense. And what he's done on the environment is not liberal at all. Yeah. It's just that he's gotten into the arena on that issue, and so people automatically label him a Kino or whatever we would.
He's an interesting guy. I think he has I don't think he's going to be Margaret Thatcher big in history, but he's going to be big. I really believe that. All right, Steve Parkhurst is his name. You can check him out over there at usdailyreview.com. Put in Steve Parkhurst, and you can see his great column across the pond. Thanks, buddy.
You bet. Talk to you next time.
When we come back, much more for you right here on The Price of Business.